Okay, I'm gonna try out a different intro. Let's see if it works. Hey guys, welcome to another video. In today's video, we are going to be talking about the Natasha Denona Glam palette. This is kind of a first impressions video. I know this palette has been going around, floating around on YouTube for a while now. This is what it looks like if for some reason you have not seen it. This is a first impression video, but I guess you could say that I'm kind of cheating a little bit because this is not the first time that this eyeshadow palette has been on my lids. And this palette, in full honesty, full disclosure, this palette is not mine. This palette belongs to my best friend Smags. I own the Natasha Denona Bronze palette. She did not pick that palette up, but she picked up the Glam palette. So we did a little trade. I gave her my bronze for a few days to try out. She has graciously given me her Glam palette. I may have used it more times than she has at this point because yeah, so I'm a teacher and I live in Houston, and so Tropical Storm Beta has wreaked havoc on Houston and we have some flooding, so I've actually missed 3 days of school, and so I've had this palette for a little bit over a week, and I've been trying it out and I've been using it, and I have some thoughts about it. So it is a first impression since it's new, but I have used it a couple times. So take what you will from that. Consider it cheating. If you want to call it more of a review, call it more of a review. But I do have some thoughts. I wanted to share them with you. I wanted to compare this palette to its sister palette, the Bronze palette. They are both the smaller sized Natasha Denona eyeshadow palettes for $65. You can get them both at Sephora. I do have a full video on the Bronze palette, so I'll link that in the cards if you want to check it out. But we are going to dig into the Glam palette today. And before I get started, I do sound a little nasally and a little congested because I am getting over being sick. I have had some sinus and allergy issues kind of getting back into work, putting a bunch of people all in one place. I don't have COVID, thank you. It's just a little sinus infection, a little cold. It's starting to clear up, so I'm finally feeling like myself and wanted to film today. But if I sound different, that's what it is. But now, the moment you have been waiting for, let's talk about the Glam palette. Okay, so first things first, I did prep my eyes. I used this Fenty Beauty Pro Filter Amplifying Eye Primer. This is the little sample size. I've been trying this out for a while. Seems to work okay, but I do always like to set my eyeshadow primer with some powder, and I'm actually going to go in with this transition shade right here. It does have like a more gray undertone, but I do have to say I have used this eyeshadow palette a few times, and even with the gray undertone, this still works to set my eyeshadow primer. And one reason why I really like to set my eyeshadow primer is because I do have hooded eyes. If you saw my beauty biography tag, I can link that in the cards if you're interested. I did mention that I have hooded eyes, and so anytime that I use a primer, when I lift my eyes up, you can't really see the crease anymore, and so I can get some creasing if I don't set my primers, and I don't think that's anything on the primers part. I think it's just how my eyes are. So you can see that transition shade works as like a bone shade for me. That won't be the case with everyone. That will definitely depend on your skin tone, but if you have a more fair skin tone like myself, you can use that to set your eyeshadow. Now, okay, I've used this a couple times, and I think the one shade that I have not used on my lid yet that I've been eyeing is this center lid shade. Now, it is kind of annoying that there aren't actual names, so I can't really tell you what I'm doing, but I think I've used all of the others on the lid at one point or another, so I think that's my goal, is we're going to go in with that shade on the lid. I am going to take the blend shade. This is the only one with the name blend, but it's this shade right here. I'm going to take that blend shade and put it in the crease. Now, I know some people, mostly makeup enthusiasts and YouTubers like myself, have been saying, well, I guess mostly YouTubers have been saying that it's really annoying that the eyeshadows don't have names. Now, I can see that if you are a YouTube content creator, a makeup artist, someone who uses this eyeshadow palette for a living, whether you're doing makeup on yourself or other people, that would be really inconvenient. However, if you are a newbie to makeup, I can see why you feel like that would be really useful, is it does give you a general idea. Now, of course, it's always a suggestion. You can put your makeup wherever you want to put your makeup, but that definitely gives you kind of a guide or an outline on where to start. I feel like that can be helpful for some people. The only thing is, then it brings up the question, are beginners really purchasing Natasha Denona palettes? Because when I was beginning makeup, let me tell you, I wasn't gonna pay $65 for an eyeshadow palette. I feel like a lot of beginners typically tend to reach for more affordable eyeshadows until you feel more comfortable. Not the case for everybody. You know, there are beginners out there who probably will reach for Natasha Denona. Maybe Sephora is just their preferred place to shop and money is not an issue, but I feel like for the vast majority of beginners, Natasha Denona is not going to be an eyeshadow palette that they tend to grab towards. Now, one thing I do want to say, I do find that her mattes blend beautifully, and I felt like they blended beautifully with the bronze palette as well. The bronze palette is the only other Natasha Denona eyeshadow palette that I have. Now, I haven't filmed my intro yet, but I would assume that in my intro I'm going to tell you that this is not my palette. It's actually my best friend Smag's eyeshadow palette that I am borrowing, but I do find that the matte formula feels the same in these two palettes, but I can tell you right off the bat, I much prefer the shimmers in this palette. I feel like the shimmers in my bronze palette gave me a ton of fallout, and I had fallout all over the face, and I have used all of these shimmer shades and I have not found any issues. I don't have any fallout at all. So I much prefer these shimmers. Just to give myself a little bit of definition, I'm going to go in with this top shade right here. It's called Crease. It's a much more cooler toned, it's still a brown, but it's like a gray brown. And so I've been using this one just to give myself some definition. Like I mentioned, I don't know if you can you see there? The definition that it gives me? So with hooded eyes, I have to take my eyeshadow crease shade a little bit above my crease. If I put it right in my crease, you won't really see it. So I like to start in my crease and then build it up. But I feel like it's really important with hooded eyes for me to actually focus on giving myself some definition there. I just kind of put the eyeshadow shade there really sloppily. Is that a word? Sloppily. And I will blend it out in just a minute, but what I'm trying to do is focus it where there would be like a natural indent. Did I just get shadow all over myself? Quite possibly. So really I'm just placing it right now. I feel like this look is going to be a lot smokier than I anticipated it being. Okay. I feel like I have it where I want it, so now I'm just going to take my blending brush with nothing on it, the tapered E40 by Sigma, and I'm just going to go over it and try and diffuse everything. I'll probably edit that part out just because for time's sake, it's an easy thing to edit. I won't really be talking you through it. But I feel like, well, and I feel like a lot of YouTubers do that. We typically tend to like cut out the blending. So just know, blending takes time. If you are new to the eyeshadow game, blending takes time. But I feel like it's really important to creating a seamless look. Okay, so now we're gonna go in with this center eye shade, and is that what it's called? Center eyelid shade, this pink right here. And I am going to apply it with a brush. I just have this Royal & Langnickel medium eye shader brush, and I'm gonna spray some Fix Plus. I was gonna say spritz and spray at the same time, some Fix Plus onto my brush as well, just because that's what I always do. I know sometimes people say, like when they're doing first impressions or tutorials, they try not to like use eyeshadow primer or not to like spray their brush or anything. But I feel like if that's what I would normally do on a day-to-day, then I just want to keep everything the same. Everything how I would normally do it. So let's go ahead and press this onto the lid. Now the cool thing about these shimmer shades is I feel like although this palette is a cool toned palette and you're gonna get a cool tone look, I feel like if I used a warm brown eyeshadow shade and this center eyelid, I feel like I could make the look very warm toned. But this shade, this eyelid shade, looks really versatile. Like it looks like I have a cool toned look right now. I mean I do, but the crease shades really made it look more cool toned, which I like, because if you wanted to go for a warm toned look, you just grab some crease shades in a different palette, perhaps the bronze palette if you are a Natasha Denona lover and you have it, and you can get more of a warm toned look as well. But I just love, I am not a glitter fan, y'all. I do not like glitter, okay? I've worn glitter in the past on my face. I don't like it. It gets everywhere. It's messy. I'm a little bit of a clean freak in that way, I guess. And I do not like glitter fallout. If you have a glitter particle anywhere, it gets everywhere. So that's the one thing that I really didn't like about the bronze palette is I loved the shades and everything. I mean, they looked beautiful, but there was a ton of fallout. And as I'm looking at my face right now, I have very, very, very minimal fallout, which I appreciate. I'm just going to take my finger, just because I can. Don't really know that it added anything, but there you have it. Just pop it right on the lid. Now, some of my girlfriends were asking me, like, how do you know what to put on your lower lash line? I typically just tend to put like one eyeshadow shade on my lower lash line. I really like to use a pencil brush like this one, the Sigma E30. It's like a fluffier pencil brush, and I just typically pick a shade that was in my crease and I use that to smoke out the lower lash line. So I'm going to go in with the blend shade. It's the shade that's more brown right here in the second row. And I'm just going to get a little bit of that on my brush and put it under the lower lash line. That's really all that I do. I feel like this brown is more of like a warm toned shade in the palette. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of that right under here. Ooh, I just poked my eyeball. That did not feel good. Definitely don't recommend that. Okay, so actually I did that, and I mean, I guess I could try to fix it. I wish that I didn't use that shade, okay? Here's real life. I wish that I took this crease shade instead, because I feel like now it makes my look almost look a little bit too warm when it was looking more cool toned before. And I poked my eye, that did not feel good. So I'm gonna try and take a little bit of that crease shade, and I probably should have done this shade instead, but I'm gonna try and make it look a little bit cooler instead of more warm toned. That was just, you know, accidental on the spot. You know what? It's okay. It's makeup. We're just playing today. I did not have to work today. Now, when I used this inner corner shade, I feel like it had a little bit more like glitter in it than some of the other shades. Let's do this center eyelid. This one has more of like a champagne silver undertone. Let's do this inner corner too. This one has more of a silver. I guess you can't really tell. Can't really tell from the swatches there. Let me try to. Can you see a difference? I kind of like the silver one. We'll go with that one. There you go. I used that silver one right there. All right, let me go ahead and jump off and finish the look, and we'll come back with my first impression final thoughts. This right here is the finished look. On my lips, I did use the Patrick Ta Precision Lip Crayon in She's Humble, and She's Unapologetic is the lip cream from Patrick Ta that I am wearing, in case anybody is wondering. But I do think that I made a smart decision when I went back in with the more cool toned crease shade underneath my eyes. So if you're trying to recreate this, maybe skip over the brown blend shade and just go right to that crease shade. Here are my final first impression thoughts. Now, I guess you could kind of say maybe this is cheating a little bit. Maybe it's not fully a first impression because I have been using it for the week. But with a week's worth of use, I definitely want to purchase this palette. I do believe it's one of her $65 palettes that she puts out, just like the bronze palette. I do not have any shades like this in my collection. I don't have any cool toned eyeshadow palettes. I reach more for like a much more warm toned look on the day-to-day, but I feel like because of that, that's what makes this a good candidate to be in my collection. I don't have anything like it. If I want to do a smoky eye, I feel like this would be a great palette to reach for, and so I feel like I'm going to pick this up and add it to my collection during the VIB sale. When I am thinking about this palette and the bronze palette is the one that I have in my collection. This is the warm toned version. So here is the bronze palette. Let me open this one back up and I can show you side by side. Here you have the bronze palette, very warm toned. Here you have the cool toned glam palette. So they do contrast each other. They are very different, but I think that's why it would be okay to own them both in my collection. These are definitely pricier eyeshadows, $65, so if you are thinking about picking one of these up, if you can hang on for November, the VIB sale is coming up, but I do think that the formula is different in the glam palette. So if you have more of Natasha's palettes, I only have the bronze palette right now. If you have more of her palettes, if you have the bronze palette and the glam palette, let me know down below. Do you feel like the formula is different? I feel like the mattes are comparable, but the shimmer shades in my bronze palette, I had a ton of fallout, and my friend Smags borrowed this palette from me, and she told me the same thing. Most of the shades were really crumbly and had a ton of fallout, like Silk had a ton of fallout, looked very glittery, Alloy, True Bronze, True Copper. I feel like the only shimmer shades that didn't give me a ton of fallout were Palladium and Gloaming. Also the High Degree. That one didn't have a ton of fallout. Rhodium had a ton of fallout. Whereas in the glam palette, I don't feel like I had fallout with any of these. Like I would have the normal, a little bit of dusting here and there if I got a little heavy-handed, but none of these had chunky glitter fallout. And that's why I think I prefer the, I don't think, I know that I prefer the glam palette over the bronze palette. I expected to love the bronze palette. These are my tones. However, you get a ton of fallout, and I feel like every time I put these eyeshadows on my lid, I had the same look. Over and over again, my look looked the same. I also didn't feel like I had any inner corner shades. Nothing was light enough for me. I didn't have anything to highlight the brow bone, whereas this palette is a full, complete palette. I can set my eyeshadow primer with this transition shade. I have several shades to choose from to highlight the brow bone or inner corner, but then you also can smoke it out. You can do a deep smoky eye. You can do a neutral everyday eye. You can even get a little bit warm toned. If you stick with blend, smoke, and center eyelid, you can get a warm toned look out of this. So I think this palette overall is very versatile. I'm very happy with it. I'm so glad that my friend Smags let me borrow this to see how I really felt about it, because I will admit, I do like the bronze palette, but I was disappointed in it, and I was like, oh, is it kind of a regret? I mean, I'm glad to have Natasha Denona, but in hindsight, if I knew the glam palette was coming out, even though these aren't typically my tones, these aren't typically my shades, I wish that I just kind of waited and held off a little longer, and I would have picked up the glam palette over the bronze palette in hindsight if I had tried them both. So those are my thoughts. That's my 2 cents. If you've tried them both out, let us know down below what you think of them. If you did enjoy this video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button before you go to stay tuned for some more content. If you have any suggestions, anything else you want to see, let me know in the comments down below, and I'll see you next time. Bye.